This is a presentation on copyright and fair use of images and Creative Commons licenses specifically geared towards educators. Each slide is narrated. To listen to the narration, click on the gray speaker in the top right corner of each slide. What is copyright? Copyright is the legal protection extended to authors and owners of original works, and those works can be published or unpublished. The author or owner has the right to distribute, make copies, perform, sell, display, or change the work. What does this mean to you as a teacher? That it's illegal for anyone else to do the above-mentioned things with that work without the author or owner's permission. But there are some ways that we can use others' work without having to pay for copyright, and we're going to talk about those in this presentation. When can you freely use images? If the image is public domain, which means that it has no legal owner, like the owner has been dead for 70+ years or the copyright was not renewed after it expired. You can find out if that's the case with what you're looking to use at the following websites: www.loc.gov or www.mpa.org. If the image is designated as copyright-free, which means that some online sites offer copyright-free images, you just have to check the terms and conditions before you use them. If the image is openly licensed, which means the copyright holder applies a Creative Commons license, and we'll get to those later. What is fair use? Fair use is a doctrine that permits limited use of a copyrighted material without getting permission from the copyright holder. It's how teachers use a lot of the copyrighted things that they use in their classroom for educational purposes. But there are some limitations on fair use. There are 4 factors of fair use. The first factor is purpose and character of use. It weighs in favor of fair use if it is for nonprofit educational institution use, used for the purpose of teaching, including multiple copies for classroom work, and/or criticism, comment, news reporting, or parody. Used for non-commercial use, and is necessary to achieve your intended educational purpose. Factor 2 is nature of copyrighted work. It weighs in favor of fair use if it's a published work, factual, informational, or educational in nature, or nonfiction work, non-consumable work. This means that it is not considered fair use if you copy from a consumable, like a workbook. Hint, hint, teachers. Factor 3 is amount and sustainability of portion used. Using a small portion of a work weighs towards use. Unless it's an image needed for instructional purposes, then the whole image can be used under fair use. And the 4th factor is market effect. This means that using the work does not harm the potential market for or the value of the work. So, what does this mean for using images in your classroom and on your websites? Single images from an artist can be used. However, when planning lessons using images, remember that no more than 5 images by an artist or photographer may be used at a time. No more than 15 images or 10%. Whichever is less may be used from a collection at a time. And don't forget to check older images to make sure they aren't part of another copyrighted collection. If you would like to use more images from a particular artist or collection, then you need to get permission first. How about using images from the internet? Google Images may seem like an easy way to find great images to use for teaching, but be careful. You can download images from the internet for student projects and/or teacher lessons, but don't repost copyrighted images to the internet. Just link to the original source. Any downloads must have been acquired correctly from the website. That means you simply cannot copy the image and use it as your own. Just to be safe, link to the images you use at their reliable resources on your website. Use Creative Commons images. We'll get to that next. Create your own images or use royalty-free sites like www.shutterstock.com and www.istockphoto.com. What is Creative Commons? Creative Commons is an organization that is devoted to expanding the range of creative works available for others to build upon and share. Creative Commons is not an alternative to copyright. These licenses work alongside copyright to allow the creator to modify the terms of copyright to best fit their needs. There are 6 levels of Creative Commons licenses. Each license has its own logo, which is featured next to the license name on the slides. Look for them on the sites you visit. We will discuss them from least restrictive to most restrictive. Let's talk about the first 3. Attribution is the least restrictive. This means you can distribute, remix, change, and build upon the work, even commercially, as long as you credit the original creator. Attribution share alike is the next level. With this license, you can change or build upon the work, even commercially, as long as you credit the creator and license the new creation under the identical terms. Attribution no derivatives is next. With this, you are free to share, copy, and/or redistribute the material in any medium or format, as long as it is passed along unchanged and in whole with credit to the creator. Now let's talk about the final 3. Remember, these will be getting more restrictive. Also, note that the logo for each license can be found next to the name on the slide. Attribution non-commercial means that you can remix, change, or build upon the work, only non-commercially, and new work must acknowledge the original, but you don't have to license the new work on the same terms as the creator did. Attribution non-commercial share alike means that you can remix, change, or build upon the work, only non-commercially, as long as you credit the creator and license the new creation under the identical terms. All new work will carry the same license and must be non-commercial. Attribution non-commercial no derivatives is the most restrictive. It's called free advertising. It means that you can use the work, but you can't change it. You must mention the source and link back to it. The work cannot be used commercially. Now let's see what you've learned. There are 3 scenarios that we will read. Please think about if the scenarios violate copyright and/or fair use guidelines. If you are viewing this presentation in a group, you may discuss the scenarios in small groups. Scenario 1. Mrs. Jacks uses a copyrighted image she finds on Google Images, adds the name of her class trip, and prints up t-shirts to sell to raise money for the trip. Is this violating copyright and fair use? Why or why not? Scenario 2. Mr. Petty likes to use PowerPoints with guided notes in his history class. He likes to include Creative Commons images from Flickr with credit to the creator. Is this violating copyright and fair use? Why or why not? Scenario 3. Miss Andrews found the perfect political cartoon to use in her class. She makes a copy for the students and links to the author's website from her class website. Is this violating copyright and fair use? Why or why not? Take some time to think about the scenarios before moving on to the next slide. Now let's look at the answer to scenario number 1. Mrs. Jacks uses a copyrighted image she finds on Google Images, adds the name of her class trip, and prints up t-shirts to sell to raise money for the trip. Is this violating copyright and fair use? Yes, Mrs. Jacks cannot reproduce a copyrighted image and sell it for a profit. She could face major legal implications from doing this. What about scenario 2? Mr. Petty likes to use PowerPoints with guided notes in his history class. He likes to include Creative Commons images from Flickr with credit to the creator. Is this violating copyright and fair use? No, he used Creative Commons images, credited the creator, and is using the images for educational purposes in his classroom. He does need to pay attention to what the Creative Commons licenses are. However, since he's not changing the images, he should be fine with all 6 levels of licenses. Good job, Mr. Petty. And finally, scenario 3. Miss Andrews found the perfect political cartoon to use in her class. She makes a copy for the students and links to the author's website from her class website. Is this violating copyright and fair use? No. Miss Andrews is using a single image for educational purposes in her classroom and links the creator's website to her class website for use. I hope you enjoyed learning more about copyright and fair use of images, as well as Creative Commons. I used several sites for this presentation, and they can be found on this slide. Thank you.